Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. Christopher Media. Let's make some noise. From Asthma Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Unregimented, everybody. We're back. 172. We're still on the air so far. Well, it's been a quiet couple of weeks.
On the internet waves.
Yes, it's been a quiet couple of weeks. They're not cracking down on subversive speech yet, but, give them time. I'm Chris.
I'm Arron.
I'm Rich.
And hey, subversive speech, I just made us a segue, and I didn't even really know it.
We're segueing already? We have to segue out of the intro?
Segue out, yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to go with what we were fixing to talk about, with our little pre-show chat.
What are we fixing to talk about?
I'm in the Northwest. Why am I talking like I'm down south? Milo Yiannopoulos on Bill Maher this week.
Mm-hmm. What a controversy.
Yeah. Someone from an opposing side coming on a show to express their view and being given a equal opportunity to do so. So controversial.
And what is it? Wait, that was journalist?
What was your segue?
Subversive speech.
Oh, subversive. Oh, okay. Oh, I get it. Sorry.
Yeah, but what is it? The journalist?
I'm not there to draw you a map, dude.
Was it a journalist for, I think, New York Times or something is basically refusing to go on the show because he's on the show?
Yeah, nice tolerance, liberal guy.
And from what I understand, he's not even on the panel. He's at the front end of the show. He's doing the one-on-one interview with Bill Maher, which limits his exposure to the panel until overtime.
That's usually how he gets his biggest guests, though.
Yeah. That's the first time I saw Bernie Sanders years ago. It was a one-on-one interview.
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with the format of his show, it's basically the middle portion is a lot like what was the old show? Politically incorrect.
Yes.
But the top portion of it, he usually gets somebody that is on the satellite or whatever, because they're not local. Or if he does get somebody local, they're touring through town anyway. But it's usually the more popular guests that get the top of the show billing. So that does kind of send a message of not that he's agreeing with him, because Bill Maher doesn't always put people at the top of the show that he agrees with. He doesn't put them at the top of the show because it's going to be an easy conversation all the time. Although a lot of it, his guests are booked based on his personal opinion, certainly, or his agenda. But yeah, it does kind of say something that we're getting this big star. He's too big to come in and sit on the panel. Was there word on whether he's actually going to be there in studio or if he's doing it by satellite?
I think he's going to be in studio. I think
that's going to be interesting because his
audience for rocks.
His audience are wolves, man, and they are just hungry for red meat.
Well, I think Milo will be the first. I think Milo will be the first person since Christopher Hitchens to get in there and not give a fuck. I mean, I didn't agree with everything Christopher Hitchens ever said, but when he was talking to Bill Maher and he was on the panel and the audience kept booing him, and finally he just fucking, without even turning his head, he just stuck his middle finger at him and said, "Just shut the fuck up." Yes, I was like, "Go ahead, dude.
I see.
Idiots."
I mean, we should preface this conversation with, I am a huge fan of Bill Maher and have seen every episode of Real Time and nearly every episode of Politically Incorrect.
Same here, yeah.
But so Jeremy Scahill is somebody who I'm familiar with. He's been on the show numerous times, and he's even actually done reporting for the show on the few times they actually send somebody out in the field to get a story. And he canceled after hearing about Milo Yiannopoulos being the top of the show guest, and even had a statement about it, which, I do have it here.
Which is full of tolerance.
It's oh damn it! What is with this? Like, I click on it I have to click on it 3 times, and it keeps getting smaller. It takes me to another page where the print is smaller. That then opens it up in another window.
Well, I have the quote here.
Where the print is smaller. Well, no, it's long though. I wasn't. There was a section that I was looking for. Okay. Sorry, just give me 1 sec. Or, if you've got a section from it that sticks out.
Well, it's just, he said there's no value in debating him, meaning Milo.
Yes. That was the most interesting.
Appearing on real time with him with a large, important platform to openly advocate his racist, anti-immigrant campaign. The Milo appearance could also be used to incite violence against immigrants, transgendered people, and others at a time when the Trump administration is already seeking to formalize a war against some of the most vulnerable people in our society. Mm-hmm. And yeah, then
you know what I think the liberal truth on Yiannopoulos is not that this is what I believe is their secret thoughts about him that they don't speak out loud. And that's
he's right on a few things.
Right. That he is not completely wrong, that ideally we would promote free and open speech in cases like this, but there's too many stupid racist people out there to make what he wants to talk about too dangerous, because all they'll see is the racist side of it. I mean, I don't know. If you just look at the facts of the things that Milo Yiannopoulos says, some of it's kind of hard to argue with it, and the rest of it is the racism is implied, right? He's not coming out and saying this race or that race is inferior or doesn't belong in this country. He just doesn't have a tolerance for other societies that don't have a tolerance for his way of life, right?
And
that's the big issue with him and Muslims.
And which is it's a misnomer to say Muslim is a race. Muslim is a religion.
Well,
and people tend to get that confused. And I mean, we all understand that.
It's a religion, Aaron. It's not a race.
I don't understand that. I mean, I don't understand how people who consider themselves enlightened and intelligent and work in the media don't point that out more often when people muddy the waters by lumping it together as, it's a race. But that's right. That's neither here nor there.
And he says about Bill's views too. He says that where was the actual quote? Sometimes love, sometimes loathe. He says something about how sometimes Bill Maher is intolerant and anti-Islamic. Or he promotes Islamophobia. Yeah,
he said himself. He goes, "Yes, you should be scared of a religion who has a large number who feel that gay people should be thrown off buildings and infidels should be, if they can't be converted, they should be killed." If Christians were going around like it was, he said this millions is exaggeration, hundreds of times easily. If Christians were going around like it was the Crusades and trying to convert people at the edge of a fucking sword still, he would be saying the same things about Christians.
Yeah, I bet anyone who calls Bill Maher a racist has never seen Religiousness.
Religiousness?
Religiousness.
No, it's not religiousness. It's a combination of religion and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was religiousless. Well, it's on Netflix. Just type in Bill Maher and religion. It'll fucking come up. All right?
Definitely. Well, Maher had a response to Scahill, which I thought was interesting. He said, liberals will continue to lose elections.
Yes.
As they follow the example of people like Mr. Scahill, whose views veer into fantasy and away from the bedrock liberal principles like equality for women, respect for minorities, separation of religion and state, and free speech.
Yeah, because I pose this question to this man. What is more dangerous? Giving quasi-racists a voice, which, if your goal is inclusiveness, whether they have one or not shouldn't be an issue, or policing language and thoughts. Because the left is heading down. I mean, they're already there with the language. I mean, how far away are we from thoughts? 5-10 years, maybe?
Well, isn't that what basically they're starting down that road already with the. I think we talked about this either was last week or the week before. Mm-hmm. I'm hearing more and more from the younger and younger crowd who's getting out of high school and is just starting to go to college, where they say, well, what do you feel about gay marriage? I don't care if gay people get married. Well, that's not enough. You have to support them. And I'm like, why do I have to go up and shake every gay person's hand who wants to get married and go, you're so stunning, you're so brave? I don't care if they get married. Don't you understand? I support their right to, but it's none of my business whether they get married or not. If they choose to, they should be able to. If they choose not to, they should be able to not to and not be looked down upon. That's what I'm saying. And they're like, well, that you're not thinking the right way. Well, okay, that's a thinking.
But there's a
come on. What am I supposed to go pull gay people off the street and force them to start getting married? Right. Hey man, I support you.
But that's a different conversation. We've had that one. On the Milo Yiannopoulos thing, or just the liberal intolerance in general, it's this attitude of this is a dire situation. We're in approaching constitutional crisis, and there's no room for gray area. And these are the same situations that like the last Bush administration used to do what they wanted. There was this idea of the people, they just can't handle certain information, and they shouldn't have to handle these big decisions of like who we go to war with or who we choose to bomb. And so we're just going to tell them to go shopping, and we're not going to film the troops coming home in caskets, and we're going to try and keep this out of the public view as much as possible. And it's a way of being able to control information without having to admit that you're being the bad guy by trying to stifle other people's ideas. You don't have to be the extremist in situations like this. You just have to have faith that if your ideas are more reasonable and you believe that most people are ultimately reasonable, that you will ultimately win.
Exactly. To me, it speaks to they're not very confident that if Milo gets up there and says what he's been known to say, that people are going to dismiss it or go, oh, that's ridiculous, or whatever. It seems to me if they were confident in their beliefs and in their ideals, I mean, it's the end of the quote that Bill Maher said was, if Milo is indeed the monster that Scahill claims, and he might be, nothing could serve the liberal cause better than having him exposed on Friday night. Isn't that?
Yes, and do you think, like, if Jeremy Scahill went on that show and said, hey, before you start your first topic, I'd like to address what Milo Yiannopoulos said, that Bill Maher is going to shut him down and kick him off the fucking show and not debate Jeremy Scahill right there on live TV? Is that what he's really afraid of? Because Jeremy Scahill
get kicked off.
Come on.
Is if he started being a 9/11 denier.
Scahill has been on Bill Maher's side for, I would imagine, 90, if not more % of the issues that they've talked about on his show. I don't remember a time where they actually disagreed vehemently on a subject. I don't remember Islam coming up as a subject when he was on the show either. But it doesn't speak well to this man who only wants to come on when he can be treated easily about subjects that he wants to talk about and not be confronted with opposing ideas.
Well, he fit in,
and not feel like he was the majority. Like, Bill will bring a conservative in, but he can only get one, and so that's all right. We can debate this one because we've got two other people here that are on my side.
It's that celebrity mentality, man. You notice celebrities only really get preachy when they're around each other. When they're in rooms full of people that have all of the same beliefs, that's when they get preachy and self-righteous. It's the same mentality, isn't it? Like, I'm not going to come on unless you got people on that line up with how I believe. Well, that's not debate. I mean, if you're truly interested in debate, that's...
Isn't that what
you're
Bill Maher started?
Pond.
Yeah, Bill Maher started this show and the previous show I would imagine, based on the fact that he didn't see any serious debate going on television. He saw the rise of Fox News and people just trying to shout each other down and said, hey, there's still issues to talk about. We can find another way. And really, it's not another way. His way is the old way of how we used to see people debate issues on television, right? It doesn't even go back that far.
Yeah.
It's pretty much everything pre-Fox News was reasonable debate.
Well, I was listening to Steven Crowder on Joe Rogan the other day, and he brought up a good point. And Steven Crowder's another guy that I probably disagree with more than I agree with. I mean, some points I think he's right on target, but I think he misses the target more than he hits it, in my opinion. But he did bring up a good point. He goes, we have gotten to the point where, okay, when that dude at the Women's March got punched, that Nazi dude, the alt-right, whatever, I can't remember his name.
Richard Spencer.
There you go. All right.
From the DOC?
Pretty much people.
The sexy spice guy.
Yeah.
That's Richard Golden.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think Richard Golden might have been a little too Jewish for Richard Spencer. It's just like this.
No, but comparing to a Jew, it feels good.
Just a tad.
But like I said it myself on the show, and I heard other people say it, and it was like, look, man, if you're out there and you're openly advocating for genocide of every race besides the white race, then you pretty much deserve what you get. Well, Steven Crowder made a good point. He goes, well, ever since people started coming out and kind of going, we have no problem with punching someone who's openly espousing Nazi propaganda, now the new trick is to take people like Crowder and Milo and say they're Nazis. Yeah. So if you don't have a problem with Richard Spencer getting beat on, then you shouldn't have a problem with them getting beat on.
Right. Why don't you ask the ACLU how they deal with racists?
Well, it's funny because
they give them their permit to march down the street, whether you agree with them or not. And I know the ACLU doesn't agree with the Ku Klux Klan, but they give them their place to march and speak their message and let people see just what fucking racist idiots they are. But
the fucked up thing is
cowards.
This is so fucking surreal. But welcome to 2017, I guess, that I'm about to say this. But the more mainstream Klan doesn't preach hanging black folks, hanging Jewish people. They preach voluntary separation.
I'm picturing like the worst album cover right now, mainstream Klan. The guys against a brick wall.
No, standing there with khakis, folded and shit.
Yes.
Like straight out of south of the Mason-Dixon. Yeah. I mean, it's But no, I mean, it's fucked up.
Toby Keith.
It's fucked up as it sounds, but I mean, it's yes, you have extreme elements who still preach the old school hardline Klan shit, but the face the Klan would like to put forward as basically civil rights advocates for white people is what they're trying to pimp now instead of being white supremacy. That's who the ACLU is defending. The minute if the Klan was taken over, if the Klan was taken over and said we want to kill all these black people and Mexicans and Jews, ACLU wouldn't defend them because that's against the law.
Right.
If you are sitting there saying Hitler was right, he did nothing wrong, you are advocating killing people. The ACLU is not going to be on your side. Mm-hmm. That's the difference here.
And also you're 4chan.
Well, yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question? Am I the only person on this podcast that when I saw that Richard Spencer guy get punched, sure, we all had the same gut reaction, like, yeah, fucking racist is what you get. But I then had the thought of like, hey, wait a minute, person who punched him, you're no better than him. Because you've taken discourse off of the table. You've said, I so vehemently disagree with what you say. The only way I can think to silence you is through physical force. I mean, isn't that an authoritarian kind of way of thinking? I disagree with what you're saying, so I'll shut you up.
It is.
Right. And
isn't the left supposed to be the party of the high road?
The argument is that all Nazis need to be punched, and ideally you punch them before they get guns. if your assumption is that's the next step. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not organized, but we tend to see them more on their own. I'm just
saying, isn't the left just preach at us 24/7? Isn't it all about the high road? That was not the high road.
Well, when you call everybody a Nazi, though, for the last 20 years, then what's a Nazi anymore? What does it even mean to be a Nazi?
See, that's one of the things that I've said to people in conversations. Look, the left has cried wolf and tried to say, "Oh, Bob Dole's is Hitler. Oh no. Now it's W is Hitler. No. Now it's John McCain." Then when the real wolf came to the door, in the form of Trump, people are like, you know what? We're tired of this shit. We're tired of it. If you go back and listen to Dennis Miller. When Dennis Miller started speaking out more so about his right-wing leanings, he was flat out asked in every interview, "What happened? We thought you were, ultra-liberal." And he said, "I was never an ultra-liberal. I've always been a centrist. My problem is I went to New York. I remember New York in the 70s and walking through Times Square. And then I walked through Times Square after I hadn't been in New York since it had been cleaned up. I'm like, wow, it's just cleaned up." And all my liberal friends are going, "Yeah, because that Nazi Giuliani." And he's like, "Wait a minute, Nazi? He cleaned up Times Square. It was a fucking hellhole."
Right.
Why is he a Nazi?
He didn't put him in ovens.
Yeah, he's a Nazi because there's not motherfuckers nodding off with a rig in their arm, pissing and shitting themselves in broad daylight in where everyone can see them, because there's not people, getting their dicks sucked around the corner of an alley, by hookers who are fucking loaded with more diseases than they have at the Center for Disease Control. Come on, man.
And while Milo Yiannopoulos is very crass about the way he says some of these things, that is one of his messages, is that you're not helping your own cause with your own extremist ideas and viewpoints. And we have these words, these terms for people and groups of people for reasons, to identify fascists, Nazis. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how... I just can't agree with calling Trump a fascist. I dislike him as much as the next person who's anti-Trump, but he is still running a democracy, right? He hasn't broken the country. He hasn't broken the Constitution. He may have
depends on who you ask there, Aaron.
He may have broke some laws, and hopefully we get to the bottom of whether he did or didn't, but that's how the system works. And this criticism of Trump, again, that he doesn't even get how government works. Well, he doesn't. He clearly doesn't have a clue, and neither does any liberal have a clue of how the Constitution works, because each one of them is only applying it to the things that are convenient for their own personal beliefs and ignoring the rest. It's like the Bible all over again.
I find it so ironic, all of these liberals thumping their chest about the Constitution the last month. Because if you did that in the previous two administrations, you were backwards, you were, subtly racist,
right, the constitutional
you got things thrown at you of like, the way we've always done things isn't a good excuse for the way to keep doing things. But now all of a sudden, when you can make it fit into your fucking narrative, we're thumping our chests and holding up the Constitution on the left.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing for the right. I mean, it seems like every 10 to 15 years they choose to pick a subject and cloak themselves in it to make themselves appear more righteous than they actually are. And now it's why should we take care of immigrants because we have homeless veterans? And then I remember in my teenage and in early 20 years, I would constantly hear, we're tired of hearing about black people cry about racism. Look at the American Indians. You think you got it bad. Look at them. And then when I was a little kid, I kind of, this was the tail end of it, but it was, why are black people crying? Irish people were slaves too, which is half-ass correct and half-ass bullshit. They were indentured servants. They were never considered not a person like slaves were, or a quarter of a person, or whatever
they were
the fuck
citizens.
It was. But it's these are things that they say, then go, well, what about these problems? Well, it's all a distraction. The people that are crying now about the Constitution on the left didn't give a fuck about the Constitution when their guy was in office. No one cared. They didn't give a shit about executive orders that Obama was signing when he was in office.
They also, they didn't give a shit about drone strikes that he signed off on. I mean, apparently,
exactly.
Like, if you were a constitutional purist, you would argue that he had to get congressional permission to do each and every one of those drone strikes, and he fucking didn't. I mean,
and it's
George Bush before him started whole wars without congressional permission, but
and remember when Gitmo being open and being in Iraq was bad? Doesn't seem to be bad, when Barry did it.
But you can always point to a worse situation or somebody who's worse off. It does nothing to further the discussion or solve the problems that are in front of you. It's a total distraction. It's basically saying, I don't see a problem with what you're bringing up.
I think it's a lot of finger pointing, and it's a lot of finger pointing and not resolving the situation. I do all that work all the time. Just email chains of people pointing the finger, and I'm just sitting there thinking, great, this isn't fixing the problem. Let's fix the problem, then go figure out what the fuck happened. And it seems like we got a lot of that kind of mentality going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now we're in real danger all around, left and right, of we're more so distracted by bullshit than I think I can ever remember us being distracted by bullshit. We're so caught up in, okay, if you don't like Trump, if you're not a Trump supporter, then you're supposed to say Trump wants to kill all gay people, Trump wants to kill all Muslims, Trump wants to keep America white, et cetera, et cetera. And if you point to the facts and you don't put a spin on them, you just point to the facts. Like, perfect example, it's the first president we've ever elected who, upon election, was for gay marriage. Because Obama wasn't when he was elected in 2008. His position evolved, as we like to call it. All right?
Oh, yeah, there were sound bites of Hillary Clinton talking about marriage should be between a man and a woman.
You got it. All right? And, when Trump's group took, control after the inauguration, they took down all the previous stuff that Obama had up on the White House website. Guess what? Every administration has done that. Obama did it with everything that Bush had up there, and Bush did it with everything that Clinton had up there.
Dude, it seems like it's getting a little witch honey in the media. The institution where your bias is not supposed to be evident, it seems just last couple months, they're wearing it on the sleeve. And
but it doesn't.
Right. If you want a successful impeachment, you can't go into the situation going, there's got to be something we can impeach him for. How do we get him out of office? Oh, this.
Yeah, how well did that work with Clinton? They impeached him. Did he ever get out of office?
Like this whole shit
finished his term.
This whole shit with Russia, there very well may be something going on there. But it might not stick because they're able to use the defense of people are angry about the election and acting out.
Like the most ridiculous story, we talked about it briefly in the chat. The thing I've seen in the last week is people talking about his fucking handshake and that thing with Gary Trudeau. Well, on the day Gary Trudeau is fucking, stiff-arming Trump, fucking Congress is rolling back mentally impaired people can buy handguns again. Fucking the day everyone's, making fun of Kellyanne Conway about Bowling Green, Trump's busy rolling back Dodd-Frank. Like, we're putting energy in the wrong places here, people. I told you guys in the group, Congress has to love that the media is just focusing on Trump because they can put all this kind of crazy shit under the radar while nobody's looking. While we're looking at Trump and Gary Trudeau shaking hands, they're just fucking, pushing all their crazy shit through because you got a Republican Congress, people.
A lot of this falls on us, the people in this country. It's our fault, though, because it's easier for us to look at the handshake video between Trudeau and Trump and digest it and have an opinion about it than it is an issue like, okay, mentally unstable people getting guns. First of all, that's like an onion. Once you start peeling it, there's more and more layers. What's considered mentally unstable? Who decides what's mentally unstable? How far does it reach? Is it people on any type of like mood elevator? Is it people, you know what I'm saying? Those are issues that are deeper than just looking at it, reading a fucking a clickbait article and having an opinion about it.
Well, it's also something that you really can't do a whole lot about unless you're willing to, as an individual, start a movement or make your voice heard or whatever. But if your real power is in your vote, you know, we've got to be patient and wait to vote people out that we don't want in office. But yeah, there is a good portion of this that is just venting because there's so many things going on that they cannot control. And I definitely understand that, like, we focus on the quick little bites and the surface things of his personality and the way that he acts. I just don't. You have to say that people are only looking at that is to make a kind of a really huge to assume a really big assumption that they're not also aware of everything else that's going on. You know, I mean, I personally follow the news pretty well, and I get on Twitter too and follow all the fucking crazy liberals and some crazy conservatives as well, and you know, passing around photoshopped pictures of Trump and liking them and commenting on them, and all just, you know, basking in their own glory of how righteous they are. But it's fun shit, and it gets off some frustration about the fact that I listen to all this news of these things going on in this country that I disagree with, that I have no direct control over, and that's kind of an outlet valve to blow off some steam and say, look at this, you know, look at his hands, look at his stupid hair, look at his tan line on his forehead. He's such a dimwit.
I get what you say. It's an assumption. It's his Wi-Fi at the hotel. It cuts in and out. So when it happens in Sporgy, we just continue talking because he's going to be right back.
Yes.
I get where you're saying where, you know, it could be taken as it's a big assumption on my part. I guess, I mean, I'm splitting hairs at this point, but I would consider it more I'm speaking in generalities because, one, it saves time, and two, I think in general, most people, the surface shit is what they look at. And if you need any more proof of that, listen to people even now talk about why they love Trump. He speaks plainly. That's not a reason to vote someone into power. If that is the tip of the spear of why you're fucking carrying a sign for Trump, then you are easily fucking amused, man. I don't know what else to say. That's as polite as it's going to get. I mean, it's the same people who would you rather sit down and have a beer with, Al Gore or George W? Well, W, because W's got the Coke, too. That's the party. But that don't mean I want a drunk cokehead running my country. I could go call up half my former band members and put them up for the fucking job if that's the case.
Right.
Who would you most want to have? Yeah. I don't want to have a beer with the fucking president. I want the president to be a competent leader.
Right.
I do not care if me and the president would hang out.
Who would I most want to have a beer with? My friend. And would I vote for him for president? No fucking way.
Because I know where the bodies are. Exactly. I know the shit he's done. I mean, that's, you know, and I think one of the things that I miss, and I'm sure a lot of people in this country miss with Obama, and even Bush to an extent, is disagree or agree with what Obama did on issues. He was an impeccable statesman. He knew how to deal with other countries, with other world leaders. And Bush, for all the shit he got, had that aw shucks, good old boy bullshit charm, and it worked for him, whereas it might not have worked for someone else. He kind of had the same bullshit aw shucks charm as Clinton did. That Southern bullshit charm. Yeah. Trump has none of that. Trump is rude, crude, socially unacceptable. He's from the business world, and he's used to being the HNIC sitting on top and everyone kissing his ass. And if you don't go down that road, he doesn't know what to do with you, so he just fucking basically hangs up the phone in the middle of your statement.
Yeah, Trump's
We're
like
done.
most guys in his position, or I should say in his previous positions.
Yeah.
Most of those guys that hold those kind of positions are exactly the same fucking way. And maybe it's a culture shock to us to actually have somebody leading the country who, deals in absolutes like that. I think that's what's hurting Trump is, I think we said this way back on one of our first shows. Life isn't, I've learned this doing the podcast with you gentlemen. Life isn't black and white. All right. Life isn't absolute. Life is nuanced. And that job, the president, I mean, you can't deal in absolutes. I mean, especially when you're dealing with things like foreign policy and shit like that. There's got to be some gray area for you. You got to have some wiggle room.
There has to be give and take, and there has to be a certain amount of couth that's used.
Yeah, well, I mean, he deals in absolutes on the issues that are important to him, but other issues he's just all over the place on.
Like, he's got to realize every 4 weeks he ain't getting a P&L. That's not how being the president of the U.S. works. I know we've always fantasized about it. Maybe H. Ross Perot. Oh, what if a businessman run this country? It would be great. But, I mean, the businessman mentality, I think the last few weeks have taught us, might not work out so well if you just deal in cut and dry.
Well, I think there's a reason that most of our politicians have education and background as lawyers versus business people. Because lawyer is the art of words, and that's how you wage your war if you're a lawyer. Business people, there has to be almost a detachment from the consequences of your actions because the bottom line is all that matters.
So just looking at numbers.
So 10,000 people just lost their job, and because of a move I made, but I just made us $5 million. Oh well, fuck them. And here's the deal: I don't even think your average business person sits down and goes, oh well, fuck them. That's what I think people like the Bernie supporters want to think. I think the average business person just doesn't care.
Yeah, they're doing their job. They're looking from the mindset of, I got a mortgage, I got kids, I got bills to pay, I need that to keep going.
I mean, that's something that I think that when people say Trump is such a, he's racist and he's sexist and he's xenophobic and homophobic, I just think Trump he's indifferent. And to me, that's almost
right. Well, a businessman has to start with, what do people want? Right? Or else he's not selling shit if he can't figure out what people want.
I mean, that's probably, Aaron, I think you just...
The audio stopped recording for a second. Like, the computer almost shut down. There was a real quick little... Okay.
Ooh, brownout, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't even. It was just like, it might have been on the breaker. But I thought I heard... Well, the furnace is probably on the same breaker. Anyway, what were you saying?
Well, I think you might have touched on one of the reasons he got elected. He came at it from a salesman standpoint. He told people what they wanted to hear.
Right. So I don't believe he's as racist as everyone thinks he is. I'm not saying that to defend his character. I'm saying that because he saw a bunch of racist people and said, here's a bunch of people I can sell something to.
Yeah. That's maybe that's why there's so much anger. Maybe we had the mirror turned on us. We're a little bit more racist than we want to think. But we're not comfortable with that.
But we have to be honest here, okay?
Well, the liberals thought they were winning.
With the percentage of votes he got in the election, there have to be a number of people who voted for Obama who also voted for Trump. Now, are those people racist? Because we like to paint with this broad brush that all Trump supporters are these racist, white, we hate anybody who's not,
No, these are people who are comfortable, who understand the issue, I think, the same way that I do, but yet are still comfortable with other people making sacrifices if they get what they want. You have either racist... narrow the
brush a little bit.
Yeah,
too.
narrow...
Let me say...
selfish.
We found out they were more racists than we thought. How about that? We'll narrow the brush a little bit.
But,
I just have a hard time. I have a hard time believing that everybody that voted for Trump is racist and
Ooh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Man, we're not getting problems with this now. What's up with Chris?
Well, him and I were on the same call, and I thought if I answered...
Oh, you two are still on with each other?
Yeah.
Let me try and add him to this call. Where the fuck is he? Oh, it won't let me. Oh, come on now.
There we go. Bear fucker, can you hear us?
Yes.
Now it sounds like you're in the shower, like with the water running.
I ran outside.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, wait a minute. We weren't gone long enough for you to whip out the fleshlight and the suction cup in the shower.
No, I ran out to the car real quick.
Okay, where were we?
You tell us, guy who can figure that out.
Let's see.
What was the last thing we were talking about? Yes.
Okay. Well, a little bit of a glitch there. Hopefully that'll be the last time that happens. Had to reboot the computer. I think we were talking about how many racist people were in the U.S. right now. I don't know. I think we can move on from that subject.
I mean, just to put a bow on it.
Yeah.
I don't feel that everyone that voted for Trump is racist. I feel a lot of people vote for they're single issue voters. Some people, it could have been health care. They don't like the fact that.
No, but you're an adult and you don't think in absolutes with everything. And most people are proving that they're not adult enough to have a conversation about this without going straight to the absolute of racism, fascism, of labeling people.
Well, it's kind of off the subject, but still a little bit on. I mean, have we, as a country, lost the ability to have an exchange of ideas across the fucking political aisle? I mean, not just in Washington, but I'm talking, Main Street USA. Because I've noticed
people scary enough to keep Jeremy Scahill off of Bill Maher's show. So I would say, yeah.
Well, see, to me, those people are in the spotlight to some extent, and maybe I'm just too cynical, but a lot of that comes off as posturing. Not a lot of it, but some of it comes off as posturing to me. That people think, well, this is what's expected of me, so this is what I got to do.
Right. Yeah. Go eat. Yeah. Go have some ice cream with Jan Hoke.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the example I was going to bring up. But yeah, about the old Saturday Night Live thing.
Yeah, when Andrew Dice Clay was going to be on, and she didn't understand that his act was a racist asshole.
Yeah, that's literally a character he's on stage playing. Right. That's not him. Yeah. But I'm talking like in personal relationships. Like I've seen more families and friends over politics in the last year just stop talking to each other. And I'm not talking about like unfollow on Facebook so you don't have to see their shit. I'm talking about, hey, what's up with your cousin? I don't know. I don't talk to that fucking racist bitch anymore. Fucking Trump supporting cunt. Mm-hmm. Or, commie bastard. I don't talk to that motherfucker.
Right.
Fag motherfucker. And I'm like, what?
This is a story that NPR likes to run, especially when liberals lose an election. They'll run a story about how do people make it work. Liberals and conservatives in the same household.
Like it's a fucking sitcom?
Like it's a sitcom, yeah. And, I remember when Bush was in office and they would talk to people and they're like, well, there's certain things that we just don't talk about, but, we make it work and we love each other. And this and that, and sure we'll argue from time to time, but what married couple doesn't? And this is like,
I kind of agree
this
with
is not about like, we were arguing so much over the election we had to break up. It was like, I found out that he voted for Trump and I can't even look at him anymore.
Yeah, that's fucked up. I mean, me and Mandy, we are definitely far apart on the political scale, but we both learned that there's certain topics neither of us are going to be flexible on, and there's some that we are, and we stay away from them.
Isn't it interesting though that you two are far apart on the political scale, and yet neither of you voted for Trump?
I know, right?
We've got a lot of distance to cover as a country.
well, I could tell you, because for me, I looked at it as a job. I like this as I'm filling a job. All right. I want the person who's, regardless of her track record, I want the person who's, maybe who's had the job before. You know, if I want somebody to fucking build a house, I'm not going to hire somebody to mow lawns.
Chris, you got to stop using the term job when you're talking about your old lady, because I'm just like, oh, so you want an experienced one? She's good at jobs?
I was thinking that job was I thought job was euphemism for pussy. Like, oh, time to get to work.
Yeah, he's like, you know what?
Gotta fill this position here.
I'm not into training. She's got to have at least 4 years experience. You know, I don't want to be planting no flags.
So if we have a kid and it's a girl, am I a job creator?
Yeah, and then you're above criticism, apparently. So, well, no, it's just, I've noticed it, man. I've seen it with my own friends. I've seen it with you know, my friends' families, and like, I know that we like to beat this fucking, you know, drum that, oh, you know, I heard it during Clinton, I heard it during Bush, I heard it during Obama. We've never been more divided. Maybe the truth is, yeah, we haven't been more divided in our lifetimes because it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I don't see anybody bringing, like, anybody even wanting to talk about bring some sort of solidarity to the left and right. It's like, I'm over here, you're over there, you stay over there, I'll stay over here, and let's just scream at each other, and and they're happy.
And that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't move us forward.
I mean, I've literally
makes a lot of noise.
I've literally had to have conversations with friends where I'm like, look, I have no problem sitting here and talking about subjects with you, but they get so intense and they get so heated, and then you can almost audibly hear the click of their brain shut off, and the ideologue bullshit starts spewing out of their mouth, because it's like they're a fan of a sports team. You know, their team can do no wrong, and your team sucks because you're their rival. And I go, I can't continue to have this conversation because someone's going to say something that they can't take back, and then it's going to be the end of it. And it's not that I don't want to have the conversation. It's just I can't even get them to concede a point. And every time I give a millimeter, they demand I give a whole foot to them.
Right.
And it's like, that's not how this works, man.
Well, let me try and roll with the sports analogy here for you then. The losing team, all the players want to, you know, bitch about this and that, and the other team got away with this or didn't get called on that or whatever it is that they want to complain about. But a good coach will look at what the other side did right. And
there's an echo in here, Rich. From 3 or 4 weeks ago on Sporgy.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know it.
And in this case, I mean, Trump ran, whether people wanted to believe it in the moment or not, he ran a really successful campaign, obviously. He got elected. So maybe he's showing you what the new paradigm for getting somebody into office is. And while
this means Kanye 2020 is a possibility. Holy crap.
Right. Well, here it is. The old paradigm was, let's take somebody who looks presidential, right? We got this guy who's he's already got experience in public service, and he just looks like a fucking president, and people trust the fuck out of him, right? And now, how can we show off his best sides and try and create a movement here of people that agree with these issues to get a voter base? And what they did with Trump, what Bannon did with Trump, was said, well, I want a candidate, but I'm never going to get a traditional president, especially with my crazy ideas. So let's first start with, what is it that the people want? And then pick the person that could sell anything to anyone, that could sell ice cream to Eskimos, and have him pitch what it is that the people already want.
To build on what you're saying, you could argue the dynamic has shifted from talking at people to talking to people, at least as far as the perception of the voter.
Right. But liberals are a voting bloc too. And if they can organize well enough, they can get together and say, okay, we got our own slick candidate. You know, He's not traditional. He's a little radical, but we can pitch our ideas. And it's not a right or wrong way to do things. It's about what's effective and what's not. I mean, liberals can be just as guilty of bending the truth to their own, to fit around their own beliefs. But if you get the person in there who can get the right shit done that you think is good for this country and is in the progressive mode that this country is always strongest in, and not the regressive mode that we seem to be in now, well, who cares how you get it done? You have to get it done one way or another. If they're thinking that they have to find a traditional candidate to run in 4 years against Trump, because people would then see the contrast of here's what a capable presidential-looking guy or gal or whoever looks like versus this clown that you seem to think is super smart for some reason, and understand that people are, the idea of the politician in general as being a credible source of anything is gone, right? People saw Hillary as, well, she's a woman, and look at how presidential she looks, so natural. She looks capable. I totally believe she could do this job. But why didn't people want to hear anything about her? Because they were sick of it, because it wasn't a change because it was a woman. It just happened to be a woman, and it was the same old shit. It was the same same old politician platitudes bullshit.
Yeah, it wasn't being a woman that hurt her. It was her last name being Clinton that hurt her.
Being a woman was the only thing that got her that far. She would have beat Bernie with her campaign if she had a dick.
It's the same reason Low Energy Jeb didn't make it out of the primaries. People saw that Bush name and went, "Oh, come on, yes. Really? Another one?"
No,
nah.
We're not doing this again. We're doing something different.
Well, I think
I mean, maybe eventually we'll get back to that point, because we go through cycles in this country, but it's not going to happen right away. And I truly believe that's where we are now. That this is the type of Trump is the type of person that we are going to accept as a leader because he is non-traditional, and eventually that type of person is going to become traditional, and we're going to say, you know what, we don't need the salesman anymore. Maybe we're a little bit more mature, and we just want a more mature person in office who doesn't pander to his people, instead picks a direction that he believes is right and leads his country.
I would think, and maybe I'm overestimating the amount of cynicism that's in this country, but I haven't felt in a long time, talking, a couple decades. And maybe it was because I was a kid, almost still a couple decades ago, that I felt this way, but I don't feel politicians work for us. I feel like every 4 years or every election cycle, when they need to be reelected, they come out and they try to convince us that they do work for us. And then they get elected, and it goes back to business as usual of what lobbyist is going to pay me the most?
Right.
This is why this bill's going to get passed, is because I'm being bankrolled by this lobby, or so on and so forth.
Dude, I don't think I've ever felt that as an adult, that they've worked for us on either side.
And with Trump, I guess why people are like, well, he's not a politician, he's an outsider. Yeah, but just like we've had conversations since we started this show about how there was a certain segment of the black population that when Obama got elected were like, we won, we got one of our own. And then fast forward a couple years and they're like, wait a minute, shit's still pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. That's because, welcome to our world. We've had white men in power. That doesn't mean that every white man gets to walk around and gets free shit just because there's a white male in the White House. This isn't that Eddie Murphy skit from 1982 on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
Oh, there are some rooms that would disagree with you, Rich, but this is one of them.
Well, Rich,
I understand about the privilege and stuff like that. I'm talking about just your everyday working person who thinks that Trump is for them. Trump doesn't even know you exist. He doesn't care. He's indifferent towards you.
I work with it sums it up great. He says, those pissed off unemployed white guys are still going to be pissed off and unemployed in 4 years. They don't realize it.
As much as it pains me to say this, I have gone back and listened to some episodes, and it's forced me to really rethink a few things when I've listened to Arron talk. For the most part, manufacturing is gone out of this country. It's gone. It's not coming back. And if it comes back, it's not going to come back in the form that we knew it for the last 60, 70 years. All right? That ship has sailed. And Trump, a major part of his whole populist rise to power was, I'm going to bring manufacturing back. Okay, but are you really? Is it going to be like the post-World War II manufacturing? No, it's not.
Right.
You're talking about you bring back a couple thousand jobs and you're taking victory laps. What the fuck is a couple thousand jobs in this country? That's a drop in the bucket.
Right. But that's the businessman mentality in him, though. He's just going to look at the numbers. He wants to be able to say at the end of the 4 years, like, I created so many jobs. Well, I made I gave you the most jobs. He's not going to care what kind they are. He's just going to look at the bottom line for jobs.
The numbers on this is one of the most hilarious things, actually, because one of the most popular positions that they're pushing for is that of the border tax. And what this would do is put a very high tax on imports into the country and zero tax on exports, with the idea of promoting manufacturing here in the U.S. and doing more exporting, right? So you figure if you're a business of any size, small or big, and you rely on a lot of imports to make your product, which describes, 90 plus percentage of businesses out there rely on some sort of import or another from another country, their prices are going to be affected. Whereas a huge tax break for the manufacturing that already exists in here. So logic would dictate that if I'm looking to start a business and I start weighing the numbers of manufacturing here in the U.S. or importing from outside, I'm going to now lean more towards this tax-free method that I can then export out to other countries, ideally. Now, here's where it gets tricky, though. And this isn't from me. I'm no economist. This is just because I listen to Planet Money. When your exports start increasing as a country and you stop importing so much in goods, your trade dollar actually becomes much stronger. Your dollar compared to other countries' currency has a lot more value now. So you can actually afford to import more goods. The difference being almost 20% better, which kind of cancels out the 20% increase in tax. So imports actually stay the same, which means you have no clear incentive to import or export. Even with manufacturing in the U.S. and exporting it tax-free, you still probably have to sell somewhat in the U.S. as well. That's going to be taxed. And you have to pay for U.S. labor and all the laws and taxes that go along with that. So the border tax really is just a shell game. It's just a way to shuffle things around. And I bet you there's a lot of people that Trump even knows that would benefit greatly from this, that do still manufacture in the U.S. and want to see this happen. And it will benefit them greatly. But does it do anything to change the direction of where the country is going? No.
Well, I think we can, whether we like this fact or not, I think we all can agree that we're quickly heading towards globalization and a global economy, more so than we have, to the point where
it's inevitable. How are you going to, it's like trying to stop information flowing from other countries. Even China and North Korea have a problem with that.
Exactly. And here's one of the things that I think it's a bitter pill to swallow, but Americans are just going to have to learn to do it one way or the other, is that this idea of American exceptionalism and we're America. We're used to this lifestyle. Look at it like a divorce. Okay. We're the hot blonde who married the rich older guy, and now we're getting a divorce. The problem is we signed a prenup. So we're going to have to lower our standard of living a little bit, our expectation of standard of living a little bit from what it was when we were together with him. Okay, that doesn't mean we're going to end up fucking drinking, mud water and, Mad Max and turn into Mad Max world over oil. But that means that, guess what? There's not going to be vacations, and there's not going to, like our parents and grandparents had. There's not going to be
Rich, somewhere the hair on the back of Elizabeth Warren's neck is standing up right now with what you're saying.
There's not going to be as many, we have a house up north or whatever, because the middle class are the ones that are going to get affected. The wealthy are going to stay. Wealth, there's a difference between wealth and rich. NBA players, NFL players are rich. Wealth is handed down from generation to generation. It is damn hard to squander wealth away, but you can piss being rich away real easy. And most of this country falls in the middle class and under. And our standards of living are going to have to drop, and we're going to have to accept that.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It fucking sucks.
The dirty little secret of the Obama administration is the rich got richer and the poor got poorer.
Why? But why do you say that we have to accept it? This is
because
inevitable.
If we go to a global economy and we're competing, with other countries, we're going to have to go down. They're going to have to come up, and we're going to have to somehow meet. And we're going to have that Goldilocks zone where these countries are going to be. And unfortunately, we're above the Goldilocks, or not unfortunately, but right now we're above that Goldilocks zone. We are the 1% by just being in this country. I mean, what was it? If you make over $32,000 a year, you're in the top 1% of income earners on the planet,
right?
In America. I mean, now granted, I've never cleared 32 grand on a tax return, but would I want to go? Sometime. Would I want to go? Yeah, I know. I would.
Rich,
wish it was
Rich, you're white, Rich. I mean, we get a $50K salary, right?
You didn't ask for that salary?
No. No,
yeah, when you got hired, you didn't be like, hey, I'm white.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, sir.
I forgot.
Let's bump you up 20 grand. Yeah.
I walked in with my hat backwards, and they just assumed, the one drop law or something. I don't know.
Right.
But
well,
But I mean, what I'm getting at is that even as bad as and not as bad, but even as low of an income as I've had my entire life, I wouldn't want to go live in some country in Africa. And been born there and take my chances there, But so as these countries like India and stuff are starting to come up with their standard of living, we're going to have to come down a little bit. Whether it's going to be we're going to pay more taxes, whether it's going to be we're not going to have all the toys and bells and whistles. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to prioritize what is important.
Right.
I mean, what really is important.
I think. Well. Look at our education system for decades now and compare that to what's going on in other countries. And it kind of boils down to, people will find their own way. And if you keep your head down, work hard, have that, good old American work ethic, you can make it work. And there have been extremely prosperous times in this country where that was true. It's not always going to be true for so many people. But at the same time that we were teaching these things to our kids, other countries are teaching their kids, you got to go to America and be a doctor or a scientist or an engineer or some shit, because there's a bunch of very unmotivated, happy with their blue-collar jobs and their fishing boat people over there that you will run rampant over with just a little bit of aggressiveness and know-how. And go make that money, because they need doctors in the U.S. They need engineers in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're talking. Adam Carolla had on something one the other day, or he had a caller or something.
Right.
They're talking about guys on the line, or making $37 an hour. Talk about I'm not qualified to work more than at Taco Bell. That's a you problem.
Yes.
All right? That's something you should have addressed before you were 42.
Problem. The problem isn't...
You should have addressed that before you were 42 years old.
Yeah, but it feels so much better to point at your country and say, well, you let this guy in who took my job.
Yeah, well, okay. The problem with that is...
That's what a lot of this anti-immigration shit is about. They want to talk about terrorism and rapists and murderers and bad people, but what it really comes down to is the fear that there's actually smarter people than you in other countries. I know that's a kind of hard thing for some people to wrap their heads around, that will come here and take your fucking job. Because this is a global economy. And guess what? We need these people. We need the gardeners and the tomato pickers, and we need the engineers, and we need the cab drivers, and we need the doctors, and we need the convenience store owners. We need all that shit. We desperately need people. If we magically just Trump snaps his fingers and everybody that he's talked about getting out of this country was gone, how soon would our economy collapse?
Quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Weeks, I would say.
Pretty soon.
Well, let's be honest here also. We've pushed on our kids this go to college thing for the last at least 2-3 generations now. And now we have people graduating with degrees that aren't worth a shit in the real world.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, they'll find their own way. Well, what is it that you want to do?
Look, I have a a half-ass equivalent to a communications degree. It ain't worth a shit. I have friends who have English degrees. You know what they say? You know what an English degree is good for? Being a starving writer or teaching English. That's it. All right? You go to college and you get your women's studies or gender studies or African American studies degree. First of all, that ain't a high-paying field to go into. Second of all, those jobs are finite. There's not a demand for them. Those positions are filled. You're waiting for people to leave that industry and then try to get your way in there. It's just like if you ever look at drug abuse counselors. Most people that go to recovery go, at some point, I'm going to say easily it's about 75% that go through recovery at some point go, I want to be a recovery counselor. Well, the thing is, the market's flooded. So you end up doing it either for nothing, and that's where you get guys who sponsor a lot of people in AA, or you end up doing it for some state-run place where you're literally making about the same amount as a person who works 40 hours a week at McDonald's. Yeah. Who gets their annual 50-cent raise. Right. And they've been there for 10 years.
I used to scoff at people who would say that, colleges in this country are nothing but a place where we send our kids to be brainwashed and filled with liberal radical ideas. But it doesn't seem to be all that career-oriented in a lot of cases, so what is it really? It does seem
realization I had in college was it is white-collar trade school. That's all college is. If you don't want to get dirty for a living, you go to college.
See, and that's what I
think
thought.
Ideally, that's what it is.
I always thought college was your way of paying your dues to buy your way into the middle class. And I'm not kind of like an apprenticeship for like a pipe fitter or something.
And I'm not saying that we need to have the radical opposite, where in China you take a test at 11 years old and you're a garbage collector for the rest of your life. I'm saying that we've become so complacent that we just believe in the system and that the next generation will have the same easy life that we did. And so there's really no big talks about what are you really going to do to support yourself, or if you want to support a family. It's...
Man, I can tell you the best advice my parents ever gave me was have a fallback job. Because the things I went to school for, I do not do for a living. My parents were very supportive, chase your dreams, all that nonsense. We support whatever you want to do. But it always came with a healthy dose of, hey, that's living inside and eating thing. You got to make sure that happens all the time. So make sure you got something to keep that going. We don't do that.
Right. And even when we try and fix the system, we fuck it up even more as a country. The testing regimens that they have No Child Left Behind is gone, thankfully, but we still we play this numbers game, like bribing the kids to attend on the day that they count heads so they keep all their funding is one of the major.
That still amazes me.
Yeah,
that is a thing.
And then I found out actually just the other day that one of the teachers that my son is having problems with in her class is in one of his elective classes. It's an advanced reading class. Now, not to brag, but my son tested highest in his school district in reading comprehension out of the whole district.
He's ahead of most of social media.
Right. I mean, the kid is a fucking voracious reader, just like I was at his age, and his mother. But so it would kind of make sense that he'd want to go into this class, but he's really interested in science, and he had been asking for to be placed into the social studies and science elective instead of the advanced reading elective, and had been ignored and been put throughout the whole year into this advanced reading course that he is having the worst time in. He was just butting heads with his teachers. He doesn't want to do any of the work. He's got a 0 in the fucking class. A 0. Right? My kid's not a fucking idiot. And yeah, he's fucking up. But it takes more than just a kid fucking up that bad to have a 0 in the class. Well, yeah, the teacher's got to not give a shit as well.
Well, teachers got to not get, well, too, and also they could not be paying attention, because, I mean, I was in kind of a similar situation in high school. I had my freshman year, I had 2 honors. I had an honors math and science class. And at the end of the year, both my teachers are saying, like, you should not have been in these classes. I'm like, well, the test I took to get in here, stuff came from your school that said I should have been in this class. They looked at my test scores. They're like, no, you shouldn't have.
Well,
I'm like, I know. I failed both of them.
Finally, finally, after having a horrible time in this class, they've agreed for the final semester of school year that he will be placed in the science class that he has been asking to for the whole year. And my ex-wife is telling me this, and it all just clicked into place. And I was like, oh, fuck. They ignored his request to be placed in the class that he wanted to be in because he was their best reader and tested highest in reading comprehension. So, of course, he had to be in the advanced reading class because that's where we have to that's where our numbers, you have to, move the numbers around and say, well, look how great we're doing with kids. We have this huge advanced, all these kids that are advanced in learning. So it's,
dude, you got Lisa Simpson.
It's not about what the kid wants to do even anymore. It's about moving the numbers around to make it seem like you're being more successful than you are. You're basically cooking the books. You're just not doing it with cash. You're doing it with children.
Yeah, you're juking the stats.
Which is worse.
Real fucked up. And let us know how that turns out for the country in 20 years. Because I think we're already seeing, you could argue the last decade, we're seeing some of that coming home to roost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we probably have some adults in the working world now that were brought up on that Common Core shit, right?
And I know we're really hard on millennials, but honestly, there is a certain part of it that I respect that says, well, at least you want to do something, like being a rock star or playing, professional sports or anything like that wasn't even close to on my radar because I didn't even have a vision period for my life, the future, right? It was just a blank slate. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I'm not trying to push more blame off on the people around me, but I sure didn't get any support as to what I should do with my life after high school.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is, hey, nice teachers.
Well, that's exactly, because not only do the kids go through all this stuff, then they're spit out into the world. And here in Western culture, we're one of the harshest on people in our own country as far as, you stumbled from at the starting, at the starting line.
Right.
Well, that's your problem. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and figure it out.
You lose once, you're a loser.
We don't help them. I mean, it's something that I've said, in all of us being in music at some point, we've all seen this happen, or we all are aware of this. When people say, when I was a kid and I said I want to play music for a living, that's what I said. The exact words, I want to make a living playing music. What people heard was, he wants to be a rock star. No, I want to make a living playing music. It's a job. I get up, I go to the studio, I record parts for people, I get paid for such, I play a gig, tour. I get paid for such, and I go home.
And you don't get on the album cover, and you don't get your dick sucked every night.
Exactly. You know what? Yeah, I will be
every other night.
I will be Reeves Gabriel. I would have been more than happy to be Reeves Gabriel to a frontman's David Bowie in Tin Machine. Let him take the spotlight. You know, let me just make the fucking albums I want to make.
Right.
When I was
you still get to wear the leather vest with no shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
I was chasing my musical dreams, Rich, it was the same mentality. It was like, cover of the Rolling Stone would be nice and all that bullshit, but if I can just make the same amount of money I'm making right now playing my guitar, I'll fucking take it in a heartbeat.
Well, part of the problem with when people heard he wants to be a rock star is that they automatically said, okay, his heads are in the clouds. There's no talking him out of it, so let him fail on his own until he figures out that that's not going to happen. Now, once I started to get into the music scene, I saw the dirty little secret of the music scene, which is the people who are successful hold on to how they got successful, that knowledge, like they hold on to their fucking balls. Okay? They don't fucking voluntarily give it out because they don't want the competition. It's really hard when you see someone who is making a living playing music and you go, hey man, how did you do it? I used to get a bunch of general bullshit pat answers. Well, hard work and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we all know that, okay? Tell me some specifics. What did you do? How did you meet the circle of musicians you know? How did you end up being a studio musician? You obviously didn't go to college and come out with a music degree and then all of a sudden, boom, because you told me yourself you didn't even finish high school. Give me a hint. What am I on an Easter egg hunt here? And that's not just when it comes to music. That's like that in life in general in this country. People seem to think that if you don't get out of high school, go to college, get out of college, and have your plan plotted out perfectly, then that's your problem. Well, the problem is if you fail and you end up becoming one of these quote-unquote dregs of society, we're going to pay for them anyways. Right. So why not give them a little bit of help in the beginning and invest a little bit of money in them then? Because if they succeed, it's going to pay itself back many times over versus going hands-off approach, do what you're going to fucking do, and when you fail, we'll just throw you on welfare and Medicaid and call it a fucking day.
You want to pay less in taxes? Then have more people in the country paying taxes.
The answer to your question, Rich, is because school districts just want to make sure they're getting their funding next year. That's why.
I know.
They'll do things like with Aaron's son and cook the books to make their shit look good so they can get a check cut to them by the Department of Education from whatever state they're in or Washington or fucking however it works.
I having a discussion with my little brother, something as simple as study habits and how you take notes and stuff like that. I was never taught that. He was taught all that. And he's sitting now in his mid-20s going, God damn, I pissed away a lot of opportunities. And I'm going, wait a minute. Did someone actually sat you down and taught you how to do all that stuff? It was trial and error for me. There was a whole lot of white-knuckled tests because I was like, boy, I hope I fucking studied the right way. I hope this shit sticks in my head. None of my parents ever sat down and did homework with me.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because when I think about my own schooling, there's actually a lot of things that I can point to in my life still that I can say that I learned that in school, in grade school or in high school even. All of the memorization stuff, the shit that, I was supposed to read these chapters and then take a test and you think that, it's history class or it's English or whatever, but it's all reading comprehension and memory. That's all they're really testing you on this shit. And most of that shit is gone. But
yeah, it's binge and purge. Stuff it in, puke it out on the test, and forget about it.
But simple things. Knowing how to separate and do my laundry and do some dishes properly in the correct order. I learned that in fucking home ec class. Learning how to operate basic machinery and have a concept of how bigger stuff like lathes and shit and bandsaws work. I took shop class.
Here's the thing where I think we fail across the board. And they failed with us, and they're still failing. Money. Teach people about money in high school. Teach them how fucking banking works.
Yes.
Teach them how the stock market works.
Yes.
Teach them how investments work.
I was going to get to that. No, I learned how to balance my checkbook in home ec class as well. You had mentioned taking notes properly. I learned how to outline properly in high school, and I'm trying to remember. I can't remember where I would have learned that. Maybe in my social studies class, or no, I think it was my science teacher. Not until my senior year in high school did she say, okay, here's how you take notes, here's an outline, here's how you indent and all this shit.
Teach them about interest rates, because
I learned how to.
Those of you that go to college are about to get fucked.
I learned how
with a credit card with a 25% interest rate in the next 6 months here.
How to type and how to compose a basic letter properly.
Grammar, punctuation,
all that shit. I mean, all that shit matters. What this concept now of millennials don't even know how to write a resume, and maybe they don't because they weren't. It's not because nobody sat them down and said, "Here's how you write a resume." Nobody sat me down and said, "Here's how you write a resume." I learned basic comprehension skills, and I looked at other people's resumes and said, okay, I can figure this out. And I typed something up.
retort to you there, Aaron, is millennials can Google anything. They can fucking, if they're in an argument with you on Facebook, they'll Google something to prove their point right. I mean, if they want it bad enough, they can Google how to write a resume.
Yeah, I think part of pretty much just copy and paste from resumes online these days.
What bothers me is that...
But they don't know how to interview.
If you don't know how to do something, we seem to have this attitude of, well, we're just going to put you in this. We're going to, if you don't know how to do something, we're just going to put you over here, and where you're done, you're not literally, but you're figurative dunce cap, and you should figure it out.
They'll ship you off to an entirely separate school.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. You're a problem. Yeah. You're somebody who is difficult to work with. Well, why don't you go to school on the short bus with the mentally retarded kids and learn how to whittle with blunt-ended knives?
When I was in the state and youth homes that I was in when I was a kid, those are the schools they sent me to, and I would literally go into classes, and the teachers were, I'm not joking, you had usually one teacher to teach, and you had quote unquote teacher's assistants.
Yeah.
And there wasn't one teacher's assistant who was under 6 foot and under 250 pounds. And they would pick you up by the scruff of your neck, drag you out of your fucking classroom, take you to a quiet room, or they start calling it centers later on, where they put you in a fucking room at a desk that was completely, you're just staring at a wall, and the desk comes out past you, and you sit there and you shut up, and if you make a noise, God help you, because they would restrain you, is what they call it. Basically what they do is they fucking put you in some sort of submission hold till you fucking gave in and did what the fuck they told you to do. That's all it was.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, I don't need to be in these classes, and my teachers are going, you don't need to be in these classes, but we can't do anything for you because we can't gear the class towards what you need. We have to gear it towards the kid who can't sit still for 5 minutes without picking a fight or flipping a desk. Mm-hmm. You're here because I mean, I had so many teachers and people in those schools and youth homes tell me flat out, you're here because you got dealt a bad hand in life, man. You unfortunately, that's just all there is to it. And, once they knew my situation, they were like, we don't know what to tell you. When I finally did go to a normal high school, I had a 3.8 and I never cracked a book. But I'll tell you what, when I got out of high school and I went to college, I didn't know how to study right because I was so used to just shove it in, memorize it, puke it out on the test. I couldn't do that in college, taking 16 credit hours. Mm-hmm. You know, I couldn't do it. You know, what is this lab shit? I got to go to, you know.
Right. High school only prepares you for community college.
Exactly. And to me, we need, oh God, and I don't know if we'll ever see this in our lifetime, guys, but I really hope we do. We need to start realizing that all this money we spend on trivial bullshit, we need to start investing back into our people. When I say our people, I mean the kids, the schools. Get rid of these bullshit standardized tests and all this, and actually start teaching kids something. And if we don't, we're not going to keep up, man. We are already a customer service society. We are no longer a manufacturing society.
I think you've hit on something that's kind of fundamentally wrong with our society, and I think it started in our lifetimes. Like, it wasn't like this when we were kids, but it is definitely now like this as adults. We cater to the lowest common denominator, and I think we're seeing the results of that. You know, not every kid learns the same, things like that. We're gearing everything to the low end of the spectrum, so to speak. You know, we're so locked into including everybody that, you know, we're holding successful people back just because we don't want to make people who, you know, some Darwin might come in. We don't want to make some people who might not have, you know,
well,
the best go of life at it. We want them to feel good, so we'll hold the people who could succeed back.
Well, real quick, I just wanted to address that. It's how I feel when I hear people say, why should my tax dollars go towards paying for someone's health care? Why should my tax dollars go towards
savings,
food stamps, and Medicaid for people?
Yeah.
But then they have no problem. I never hear these people that bitch about stuff like that, bitch about their tax dollars going towards drone programs that are bombing entire fucking cities and making more people in other countries hate us, who at best would have been indifferent to us. And maybe, or at worst, would have been indifferent to us before that. And at best, maybe would have actually wanted to come here and live the quote unquote American dream. Now they hate us. You know, hey, we bombed a school by accident. That's a blip on the news to us. Those people's lives are fucking ruined. Children are dead. Parents are digging through rubble, pulling out chunks of their fucking child. What do you think that's doing? Is that making us safer? Is that making us a better country? Is that making a better world?
Or being dumped into a military that's big enough to fight 3 wars at once and not even blink? I mean, not saying to remember because we're not that old, but we've certainly read about the greatest generation, the ones that fought World War II. And
World War II.
And all the...
Remember Hitler?
And what did all the people that stayed at home do? They got into manufacturing because we needed to produce a lot of shit, right? Mm-hmm. We needed the whole country damn near involved in producing tanks and weapons and gear and food and all the shit that we had to send over to sustain this war effort. And not only were we told in our more recent wars not to think about what was going on over there, but there was no even need to ask the people to up manufacturing or this and that. Hey, we're not making any more of these cars right now because this factory is going to be turned over into a tank factory. That's unthinkable now. No, the people's got to have their hatchbacks and their SUVs. We got way more tanks now than we'll ever need, and way more ships and bombers and nuclear missiles even than we'll ever possibly need. And we just keep dumping more and more money into it because it's like, well, you can't put a price on your family's safety, can you?
Also, we've done exactly
if you go bankrupt building a bomb shelter, then you're not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah, but you also too fall into that wonderful trap set by the federal government of, if you don't use all the funding we gave you this year, you don't get it next year. So
because maybe it's a trend. That's why those budgets are set like that. the trend is away from tanks? Because we're not doing anything with tanks, but we're still making them? That's why we have the system in place. But no, you can't take away jobs from some senator's district.
Why do you think where we live, there's a St. John's every 50 feet? Because that's a result of, well, if we don't spend the money, we're not getting it again next year. I mean, it's the same kind of mentality.
We as a country watched Eisenhower's last address to the country as president, where he warned us about the military-industrial complex, the peripheral, you know the word I'm trying to say.
Yes, peripheral.
Of instruments of war, the constant perpetual war.
Proliferation,
thank you, yes.
Okay.
Being in a perpetual war with an invisible enemy or an abstract enemy, aka communism for so many years, and now we've even trumped communism. Now we have an idea. Now we have a religion that we're fighting the extremist, which is even worse than communism. Because I mean, let's be honest, Islam has been here for a long time, a lot longer than communism. It ain't going nowhere, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with Trump's policies on immigration is that he is yes-anding ISIS. He's saying, "Oh yeah, this is a religious war, and I'm going to ban these people of this religion from this country."
Oh God, I hate to sound like I'm defending Donald Trump, but who started that religious war?
You know what? Here it is.
Yes,
you know who started it? You know who started it? A bunch of people that none of us ever knew that were dead long before all of us. So why are we carrying around dead people's baggage for them? What are they doing for us?
That is a stellar point, but
you're not going to win. You're not going to win this war. This is a war of ideas, and if your idea is, I agree that this is a religious war, how are you ever going to win that war when what you really need to do is convince moderate Muslims in these countries to take control of their fucking shit?
Well, we also do amazing things as Americans when we go to war. Like,
I'm sorry, was that anti-Islam that it was said right there?
Anything could be anti-anything at this point. Just depends on how someone wants to take it out of context. But we do amazing little things, like we go to war and we take all these instruments of war, the tanks, the Humvees, and when the war is done or we pull out of that area, we just leave that shit sitting there. We don't bring it back. We leave it sitting there. Now,
it's nobody's money. It's just tax money.
We've created a power vacuum.
Owns it.
We created a power vacuum.
We created Osama bin Laden.
We created a power vacuum in Iraq by taking out Saddam because he was a secular dictator who kept, through horrible means, I'll admit that, but he kept them motherfuckers in line.
Yeah,
and we created a power vacuum, and then we left all these great toys for the Sunnis and the Shiites and whoever the fuck to start their own little civil wars and start fighting, and they're using our own weapons to do it. And yes, you're right. We trained Saddam Hussein.
Bush. It was a joint effort of creating ISIS. It was Bush and Obama together. Bush fucking up the country and then Obama getting us out of there.
If you really want
opportunities.
If you really want to go back to it, let's go back to the very catalyst of it. It was when the Taliban was fighting against Russia, and the CIA under Reagan was sent in there to train the Taliban in guerrilla warfare tactics against the Russians, because CIA, the enemy of our enemy is our friend. And then when the Russians pulled out of Afghanistan and the Taliban took over Afghanistan, it started spreading outward. And every president we had since then did absolutely dick about it until 9/11. And by that point, it had spread to us. It had crossed half the fucking world to come get us. Okay? It was too late. We're locking the barn door after the horse left. We didn't heed Eisenhower's warning. We didn't heed generals' warnings after the Cold War. We didn't do any of it because we're arrogant. And our arrogance is coming to bite us in the ass.
Also, too, man, I said it in our chat group, we used to be proactive. We have become reactive. Instead of trying to, be forward thinking and think of how we can prevent things from happening, we wait for shit to happen to us and then we react. Case in point, November 8th. But it's probably since World War II we've turned into reactive instead of proactive.
Well, But even then, we had an understanding of counterintelligence in wars. I mean,
well, it was a slow drift.
We understood that the Nazi
60, 70 years.
Like, part of the battle was punching the Nazi, and the other part of the battle was showing them how great life was in America and how wonderful things are when you don't live with a boot on your neck. And that's what we have in the Middle East. We have countries that, okay, this is going to sound racist again, trigger warning, but what you obviously have, what you inarguably have, is a majority of people in these countries that are more comfortable with their own country's boot on their neck than trying to live some semblance of freedom under a foreigner. And
well, are we back to the devil, that saying? And
in some cases, it's not even about the foreigners coming in. They're just more comfortable with with people in power oppressing them. I mean, there is no other.
It's all you know. It's what you're used to.
There is no other conclusion to draw because guess what? All countries have gone through this, right? Every single country by now has had a revolution of some sort where people got their senses and came to their senses and realized, hey, guess what? We're not just, well, I guess North Korea is like one of the few places that still is just run by a monarchy. But yeah, we're not going to let you lead us just because you have the same blood as the last guy who led us. It means nothing. And we demand some sort of representation. And
that's why this whole country exists, because of that mindset.
Right. So that's the only way things are going to change in the Middle East is when they decide to progress the way the rest of the world has. And I guess that is hate speech, because if Bill Maher hates Muslims and Milo Yiannopoulos hates Muslims, I don't think I said anything different than what they said.
Well, if you're rooted in an archaic religion, progress is not exactly your friend.
The problem is that they have to figure it out for themselves, and they have to work it out for themselves.
Right. You
can't
have an intervention with a junkie who doesn't want to get off the junk.
But we're dealing with junkies who are sitting on the world's biggest supply of oil and the world's biggest supply of opium, of poppy. I mean, ever since we went to Afghanistan, look at the explosion from pharmaceutical companies of opiates that have come out. Look at the numbers of prescriptions that have went up, and look at the numbers of overdoses that have went up. The same thing with most of the Middle East. They're sitting on a ton of oil. The U.S. is so, I don't even know the word to use, because if I use the word I want to use, I'm anti-American. If I use a softer word, then I'm softballing the issue. But we're so fucking arrogant, and we're so greedy for that fucking oil, and we want to control the fucking flow of it. We want to control the market for it, that we're willing to get involved with these countries who are fucking powder kegs, who are they're in shit storms without us, and we just go in there and kick the hornet's nest and make it worse. And we do it constantly. We've done it constantly since World War II. Whether we do it in the name of fighting communism, or we do it and we're going to go over to Vietnam and free those people, or no, we're going to go over to Afghanistan and Iraq and we're going to fight them there. That way we don't have to fight them here. Whatever. We dress it up and we fucking put a yellow ribbon on a goddamn fucking tree, and we call everybody to join some military heroes, and we send them off to fight these fucking wars that really don't need to be fought. What did we do? What did we win? Nothing. We've agitated the situation, and that's all we've done. Mm-hmm. And yet people are like,
oil will become obsolete before we rid the world of terrorism.
That's just what I was gonna talk about. Is I've been with you lately, Aaron. I'm like, why are we investing all this time, energy, blood, lives into this dying technology?
Mm-hmm.
How much longer do we give the internal combustion engine that's run on gasoline? Another 50 years, maybe?
Oh God, no. I caught the tail end of a story on the radio today, and I wish I knew what they were talking about. But they were talking about some sort of energy policy somewhere, and the woman being interviewed was like, well, nobody realizes that the cost of doing this with green technology it's actually cheaper than using coal, natural gas, oil, any of it. The technology that we have is the cheapest route, and people just don't want to believe that because they always understand anything that's a renewable energy or what's a natural source of energy like the sun, shit like that. I'm losing it. That it's always going to be more expensive, and no, technology is progressing quite fast on this. And the technology that is in our cars, the only thing that's progressing are the fucking touch screens. That's it. They managed to squeeze a little bit more. Oh, we got, 1% more performance out of this, and that equals this much more horsepower.
Well, it's another phrase that comes out of my mouth a lot. I mean, but remember, we have a story we're telling, right? I'm invoking the ace man again, but he always talks about when he talks to people in the energy industry or scientists, what's the best, what's the solution here for energy? Coal's going to run out soon. Oil is dying off. Where do we go? The answer he says that he always gets is nuclear energy, but there's a fucking stigma on it for some reason. People think it's bad. So we'll just keep burning oil and digging coal out of the ground.
Well, that's because, when people are irresponsible with it, yeah, it is bad.
That's because when shit goes wrong with nuclear energy, you get Chernobyl.
Right. But this was the argument against the airplane. You're going to send a bunch of people up into the air? Like, if
safest mode of travel known to the known world, yeah.
If it goes down, all those people are almost 100% surely dying. At least you can walk away from most car wrecks. Well,
I don't know about walk away. Be carried away at least.
Right. I mean, not so much anymore. Now
well, this is where I go back to saying we're going to have to get used to a lower standard of living. We're going to have to get used to that SUV. It's cost prohibitive to own. Okay. Yeah, I know it makes you feel great.
Yeah,
but if you're sitting around driving in a fucking dually fucking diesel pickup truck, and the only thing you do with it is hop in it, drive to Walmart, and then drive to your fucking job, sorting mail at the fucking post office, you really don't need that fucking big ass truck. That's an ego stroke.
Hey, man, the only reason I'm driving the truck is this is the first time in my adult life I was able to pick the kind of car I was going to drive.
Well, fucker, I wasn't knowing we're talking about you. I'm just saying in general. You got some serious rabbit ears, man.
No, I'm just saying, it's the first time in my life. I've driven four-door fucking four-banger sedans because I had to. This is the first time in my life I was able to actually go and pick the fucking kind of car I could get.
Hey, I think he doth protest too much about the truck.
I'm just going to say this. I walked into the dealership when I bought my car, and I was like, pretty much anything on this lot I can buy. And I bought the four-banger, four-door fucking, that gets good gas mileage and could haul everything I needed to haul. That's just me, though, because I don't...
Trust me, after the hike in insurance and the extra gas I'm spending, I will be going back to a car after this.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, but here's the thing. You don't cling to that and get pissed that, well, why can't I have this fucking truck that I don't need? You learned your lesson. I've learned my lesson with vehicles like that. When my dad died, I inherited his truck. The thing was a gas guzzler. It had a carburetor on it. It was a 350. Every time I put my foot on the gas, you could hear cheering come from the Middle East.
Right. Yeah, I know, right?
They were loving that. They were like, go, infidel, go. I mean, it was...
Yeah.
Every time Rich accelerates, Saddam gets a new ring.
Exactly.
Right. It never mattered to me how cheap gas was. It was that I was still pissing away money by driving a vehicle way too big for my current purpose. That's always bugged me. I've always preferred to drive smaller cars because of that.
Only reason I kept it, honestly, is because that was my band years. And I could haul everything in that fucking truck. Yeah. But then that became a pain in the ass because I got to be the troop transport.
Right. And I have nothing against getting the car that's right for your purpose, even if it means that it's going to cost more in gas. I'm not trying to say that people need to change their way of life. Let's face it, SUVs are popular not only because gas continues to be so inexpensive, but people just need it. People are bigger overall, and you try and fit like 2 car seats and another person in the back seat of your average car. It's just not going to happen. These car seats are, wide as fuck, and the kids stay in them forever. So they just need a bigger vehicle. That's fine. You need, the big truck with the exhaust going out the top and everything's raised up because you like to off-road or like to go out to, places where you can hike or something like that. That's fine. Do what you want. Live your life. It's great that we live in this country where we have these luxuries. Enjoy it. But to just do it because you can is just ridiculously wasteful.
That's the American way, though, man.
I just listened to a podcast with Henry Rollins, and I didn't realize how Spartan of a lifestyle that man actually lives until I listened to this podcast. The gentleman interviewing him was like, what's your deal? You're, a rock star in a sense. He's like, I wouldn't consider myself a rock star. I consider myself lucky enough to have made a living playing music for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. And now I'm able to do what I want to do. And he's like, well, what do you do? He goes, well, I own my home and I don't spend a lot of money on anything but records and my sound system. He's like, the thing I splurged on is I got $6,000 speakers.
Fuck yeah.
And a $2,000 turntable, and I go record shopping. But I get in my Mazda 6 and I drive to the record store and I buy my records. And then I drive to the store and I buy 20 gray or black T-shirts and 20 pairs of slacks that are all black. And I go and I put them in my closet and I wear almost the same thing every day. And I don't have a lot of bells and whistles because I grew up on the road, and you can't take all the toys with you on the road. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's kind of how I look at things. I mean, my car is in good condition. It runs well. It gets good gas mileage. And it's reliable. That's all I need from it.
Right.
I don't need.
That's how I've always looked at transportation, really.
I don't need rims. I don't need a sound system. I'm not trying to impress anybody. If you were to look in my closet, it's literally black T-shirts and then a couple different color T-shirts, maybe a couple graphic tees, and then either blue jeans, black jeans, slacks, stuff like that. I don't have a bunch of fancy stuff. Even when I played music, I got the setup that I wanted, that got the sound in my head to come out of it. And I stopped. And unless I found, and this was like literally once every 3-4 years, I'd find a new pedal or something, and I'd go, oh man, that sounds really good. I can do a lot with that. And I'd buy that and add it to the pedal board. I got friends that literally to this day, every time they get a paycheck, they're at Guitar Center buying new gear. Mm. They got gas like a motherfucker.
But yeah, I have my weaknesses like anybody.
How much life sucks and they're always broke.
Right. But that's a weakness for me. I mean, new products, new toys to make sound with. I'm a sucker for that.
Well I mean,
I'm the same way.
My life has become rather Spartan. Post divorce, I had to change a lot of things in my life, and it's funny how when I look at myself right after the divorce, and I'm thinking, look, I'm making shit money now, and I've got to give half of it away, and I can't afford a decent place to live. I can't afford this and that, all the shit that I couldn't afford to do, and how am I ever going to get anywhere? And it was a process, but I had to shed a lot of things and a lot of concepts and really pare down what was important to me in my life. And I'm not making a ton more money than I was now, but I'm looking at an apartment that I didn't think that I could afford. Because I learned how to not only budget, but cut out the things that were unimportant. And understand that, you don't have to sacrifice everything. You can still have things that make you happy and just be reasonable in how you handle your money and your finances. So
yeah, I understand, guys, because until 4 years ago, I was always the brokest of my friends. So
right.
You're preaching to the choir on that one. I mean, you figure it out real quick. I mean, I was the king of good enough. I mean, my rig when I first started in my band, Rich, was a fucking Fender M80 that I had in high school, and I fucking bought a cabinet and just ran that bitch through that because I had an extension speaker fucking, what I'm saying? All my Les Pauls have been Epiphones. I mean, my one weakness now that I can afford it is fucking electronics. But no, I understand, gentlemen. I mean, but
like real dolls and shit.
Hey, Mandy mocks me all
You're
the
fucking
time.
electron. You got those iPad things.
Like, how often do you buy clothes? Because I got like T-shirts with holes in them, like drawers from high school. She's like, dude, like, you know you're an adult, right? You can go to the store and buy new clothes.
See, and yours is electronics. Arron, yours is sound equipment, stuff like that. Mine, the worst thing I ever did was buy an e-reader, because instead of having to haul around books, especially when I can link it to a bank account, and I go, oh, that's a book I've been wanting to read.
Oh yeah,
I could pick that up, and I'm not handing over physical cash doing it. It just seems like, whatever. I realized, I was like, I just dropped $150 on books.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, if I went to a bookstore, there's no way I'd have dropped $150 on those, that much on books.
So my ex is she's still reads a shit ton and blows through books constantly and buys all hardcovers. I mean, she spends probably twice as much as you do in a month.
I mean, hey, superfluous.
Well,
I'm just saying. When I could spend it,
at least I know where my money's going, right?
Yeah, I know, right? When I could spend it, I enjoyed it.
Half each of those books. The front or the back cover.
You get the slipcase. Here you go. That's yours. You can have that. Oh, good. I get the gist of the story. Oh, all right. Oh, and here, the New York Times said greatest read this year. Okay, wonderful.
Well, yeah, now that we're in the age of ebooks, I mean, who are books for? If you have a bookshelf, who is that for?
But dude, honestly, if I could, I had a book collection. I mean, I had first editions of like when Stephen King had his pen name, I had a first edition of Thinner.
Right.
That was Richard Bachman in hardcover. It had nothing that said nothing on it about Stephen King. I had first editions of some of the Dark Tower novels. I had collector's editions, and I lost all that in divorce. I know, but if I had, with all the space I have in my apartment that's empty, if I could put in bookshelves and fill them full of the books that I used to have and that I want, I would do that, because as much as e-readers have made it easier to carry around a library in my hand, there's nothing like pulling one off the shelf. It's just like a record. There's nothing like pulling the record out.
That's what I was just going to say.
The ritual of putting a record on the record player.
Yeah, because MP3s,
we'll disagree on the music.
MP3s killed all other forms of media except for vinyl. Vinyl has increased in sales.
That actually outdid digital sales this last year.
Yeah, no shit. So,
wow.
So yeah, I mean, what's it for? It's for the fan. It's for the person that wants to own that having this digital ethereal copy of it that maybe you didn't even pay for, you just isn't enough. That you need to support and be part of that. You want to own the thing. And not only to own it, but to put it up on a shelf where you can say, hey, look at this. I'm into this. I'm cool. I'm not saying that. I know that comes off as really snide, but I mean, everybody does that. I put up posters of shit that I like and say, hey, look at it. I like blonde redhead. I'm cool and indie. Check me out.
Hey, man, I'm on the other side of this music argument, because the one thing I embraced MP3s because the paranoia of losing your music collection is gone. Like that's the thing. Like,
getting your shit
CD
stolen.
book that I'd built up over years and years. Yeah. You don't want to leave it in in view in your car in the wrong neighborhood. You don't want somebody to steal it. You don't want it to be somewhere where the sun's going to shine on it. Oh, did I leave this CD at this party? Dude. Oh, yeah. I love the feeling that's gone.
And then think about being a DJ back in the day and carrying on crates of records that were out of print. That even if you could find another copy, it'd be like $50. Records would get ganked all the time.
That's the thing too, is out of print is gone. You never have to worry about like, oh my God, I had to order this. It took 3 weeks. It's $50. And who knows if the company that made it is still around. If I lose it, if I can get another one, like that is no longer a thing.
That's the only reason I embrace digital technology, is because I literally lost 3 record collections between like when I was 14 and 32. And finally at 32, I just gave up. I said, I'm not dragging around CD cases. I'm not dragging around records anymore. I just sucked it up, listened to the shitty quality, over-compressed.
Which has gotten a lot better. It has gotten a shit ton better.
It has, but nothing. I mean, and this is snobby hipster shit, but nothing beats vinyl. Come on. I mean, really. Yeah, right. It's like recording digitally versus on the tape. Come on, man. There's a sound difference, and if you don't hear it, then you haven't heard the two enough to tell a difference. It's like people go, that Fender Stratocaster sounds just like that Les Paul to me. That's because you haven't heard a Fender Stratocaster versus
you
Les Paul.
You are an idiot. Yeah. But no, Rich, I'm snobby like that with guitar amps. Dude, solid state is awesome, but nothing beats a tube as far as your tone.
Which is, real quick, it's funny you should bring it up because have you guys, I've had a little experience with this recently. Have you guys fucked around or heard any of the newer modeling amps they have out these days?
Oh, yeah. I've got a little Black Star portable.
You got a Black Star? What did you say, Chris?
Well, I have it's not a modeling amp, but it's the same kind of technology. I have an app that I bought for my iPad that is fucking just insane.
It is. It's
called Bias.
Yeah, Bias is great. And no, it's a modeling amp. I mean, that is the same technology that's in my modeling amp. Well, right, but it has no amplification other than its own tiny little speaker. You still want to hook it up to something, but it's the same shit going on in there.
Well, yeah, because I went into Guitar Center recently, and they had these the Marshall Cubes, which are their modeling amps, and
there's not a bad one out there. Just it's like anything else. Just pick what you want your sound to be.
Exactly. I'm sitting there and I'm playing it, and then I went over and I played the Fender. I can't remember what they call theirs.
The Mustangs.
Yes.
And I had a Mustang for a little while too. It was nice. And
then I played another one. I believe it was an orange modeling amp.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And I started talking to the guy, and I'm like, so what do you think? And he goes, I'm gonna be honest with you. He's an older guy, older than me. So, I put him in his late 40s, early 50s. He goes,
yeah,
I've been a tube guy my entire life. He goes, but I'm old now. I'd be damned if I'm dragging around a 100-pound twin to play a fucking 50-seat bar anymore.
Right.
And modeling amps have come leaps and bounds from when the Cyber Twin come out, 15 years ago.
Yeah. We're far beyond the red knob era, folks.
And he's like, and I said, well, which one would you, do you think sounds best? And he goes, honestly, what features on what amp and what user interface do you like best? And that's how I'd choose it.
Yeah.
He goes, the preset sounds on most of them are garbage. You're going to have to tweak them. He goes, but when I plugged in, and I've played through an actual vintage, JTM 45 Marshall, I know what that sounds like. Strat into that. I know exactly what that sounds like. And I plugged into the Cube, and I was like, okay,
like Billy Corrigan.
I can't A-B it because I didn't have that amp there, obviously, the original, vintage one. But I'm like, God damn,
but it gave you that feel.
Close.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that's fucking close.
At the end of You People, or I should say at the end of my tenure in You People, I was running, my iPad was my preamp. I spent like $600 on a preamp 6 months earlier, only to pretty much bypass the amp, set everything to flat, and then my iPad was my preamp, and I was modeling sounds through that.
Right.
Yeah. Which I'm just amazed at how much. I know I've been out of it for a while, for about 7-8 years. I'm just amazed how much shit has progressed in that 7-8 years.
Right. But
it's really shocking.
But there is still a downside to it. I mean, doing it the way you were doing it, Chris, I would do that for a show easily, but you also have, if your iPad app crashes, you just plug into the preamp and keep going. But
my issue was latency.
Yeah, latency can still be an issue, but I did sound for a cover band a couple weeks ago, and the guitarist showed up with about 4-space rack unit case and his guitar, and he had a laptop, and I was like, "Where's your amp at?" And he's like, "This is it. This is what I do." And he's like, "Just jack me right into the sound system." I'm like, "Okay, that's easy enough." I just line you in, and you control almost all of your tone as long as you know what you're doing. I wouldn't believe that you would invest all this money in this gear, because he had like nice MacBook computer and rather nice Focusrite interface. And so we're setting everything up, and I'm getting nothing but noise off of his outputs. Like, I don't know if it's your setup or if something's wrong with your sound card, but like I get a little bit of signal and just a lot of what sounds like ground hum. And we went through every configuration to try and get him a guitar tone that eventually ended up running his headphone out straight from the MacBook computer into one of the powered monitors that were there on stage just for his guitar amp, and then miking that monitor for the sound system. And I'm like I'm all for
like a little bit of user error.
Well,
like,
yes,
don't buy shit you don't know how to use.
But I don't know though. You know that I know this shit. I set up this whole studio, and I was flummoxed by it. I'm like, I'm not as comfortable with Mac, but none of what I'm looking at is making sense. I couldn't get that interface to work right. I had no idea why he had so much noise on his outputs, and it could have been the power, because we had weird power things. During all this, while switching stuff around, I was plugging an audio input, mind you, into one of the monitors, and it popped.
Oh. And
one of the other guys, I think, had some electrician background. He's like, I think one of your mics there is cross-wired, and the hot's in the neutral position. But yeah, there were a number of problems that night. I just barely got through that set without the crowd lynching me for the complaints of the sound. And I'm like, it's not my fault. The band's fucked up and the sound's fucked up, and I'm doing what I can. So I guess the point of that too long tail is bring the computer, bring the iPad, and still bring at least some sort of amp, just in case, because we're not there yet where the computer is as stable as a guitar amplifier, unless it's a modern Marshall, and then it's kind of a toss-up.
And bring a cord.
Either one
plug in.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing he didn't have. Quarter-inch cables. Like, it started with...
Tell the story again.
I got to go into the direct box and shit. Anyway.
All right. I might have told you guys this story. Maybe I haven't. Maybe it wasn't on this podcast. I want to run this by you guys. Let's see, about a decade plus later. See if I'm the asshole here. Like, we were playing in a Battle of the Bands, and the band that was going on after us...
I'd say yes. You were in a Battle of the Bands. You sound like an asshole.
Sadly, yes.
The band that was going on after us, kid comes, gives us this sob story of, hey man, my fucking aunt blew up last night at rehearsal, didn't have, kid's like, I'm like 23, this kid's like maybe 18, don't have much money to go get a new one, hey man, can we borrow your, this is back when I was running the M80 into the head, so I had an extra combo amp laying around. Hey man, can we get your combo amp? Sure, go ahead, no problem, man. That sucks, I've been there, here we go. No, here comes the rub. Afterwards, no, I've been drinking. But they borrow the amp, and then they come to me, and I don't know why they just asked me. There was another guitar player in the band. Maybe he didn't bring another, but asking me for a chord. And I go, no. Like, what do you mean, no? Like, you came to a Battle of the Band pretty much hoping someone was going to loan you an amp, which, first of all, is presumptuous as fuck. You should have just pulled out of the battle. But I was nice enough and gave you the band. If you didn't bring something, like, if you knew you were going to borrow somebody's gear, you should have at least brought a chord. And I just said no on general principle. And everyone in the band kept calling me an ass. My band was calling me an asshole. I'm like, just loan them the chord. I'm like, already loaning them the fucking amp. How are you going to show up expecting to borrow somebody's gear and not bring a chord? I'm teaching this kid a lesson.
How do you not? How does the band that he's in itself not have extra chords?
I brought.
Don't you have backups?
Yes.
To backups?
Yes. Absolutely.
But apparently, I was deemed the asshole that night. Now, all right.
What were you expected to do? You play the guitar for him too? Why don't I just get...
I think I said that.
What's the key? I can play it. Just step aside, Butch.
Yeah.
I used to play a twin, and
oh yeah,
it has 4 power tubes.
I played a twin a couple times.
I'd pull the middle 2 power tubes, so I was running at 50 instead of 100 watts. All right, and if you know anything about twins, I mean, those fuckers will still run if only one tube's burning. They
run clean too. You can't even get them to break up.
Headroom for days.
Yes.
And but I took the other tubes and I wrapped them up and I put them in my what I called my bag, which was extra picks. I mean, half a case of strings easily. Extra cords, batteries.
I've brought a whole tackle box full of shit to gigs before.
Exactly. I mean, and this was.
I could restring and even solder a guitar on the spot if I needed to. That's a little excessive. Like, bring an extra cable is all I ask.
Yeah, I didn't go so far as to bring a soldering iron. But I mean, even if both those 2 other power tubes blew, I could turn the amp off, pull them, put the other tubes in, to put it on standby, let them warm up, boom, hit it, and I'm good to go. No problem. And to me, it's like, that's duh. That's seriously, what the fuck? Now, in my experience, the few Battle of the Bands I got sucked into, we were always usually the older of the bands, meaning we were in our late 20s. There'd be a bunch of fucking 16, 17, 18-year-olds coming in with $4,000 fucking PRSs and Marshall stacks, and I'm like, oh shit, and their parents would come in behind them, and the parents would start, I'd start talking to the kids, and oh no, it's what my parents bought me. Really? And I go talk to the parents and say, well, they said that's what they needed to play at Guitar Center. And I'm like, no, but okay. I mean, good for them, I guess. And they go up there and they play fucking tune to drop D playing 1-finger power chords the whole time. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Are you serious? You've got
It's like you see a fat guy with a 10. You're like, what's going on here? What is this?
I mean, but you have to have believe me, I've never been with a 10. But I've been with a 7 and I'm a fat guy. You gotta have some personality. And they had no personality. You got $10,000 worth of a guitar rig and you can't even play a pentatonic scale?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we're from Michigan. We see that more. Maybe when you're in California when you see that. You go, hey, what are you going on? What are you doing with that, buddy?
I got
his wallet's fat. That's the problem.
I got a MIN asshole story for you real quick then. When I was playing with this band Telecollision, and I believe I had only been in the band like a week and a half, and it was our second show that we were doing, and it was at a rather large venue up in Pontiac. I forget what they even call it these days. It used to be Industry back in the day. It's had a couple different names. But it was kind of a big deal. It was the largest stage that I had played on. And, or no, it wasn't that. It was another venue. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Crowfoot. And
in Pontiac. Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to hope that I remember all my parts, right? None of this is been repeated enough to be just natural for me, where I can just breeze through songs and look at and think about other things. Like, I'm actively remembering what key every song is in so I don't fuck this up. And there was another band there that was playing that we actually knew, these kids that shopped at Guitar Center. 3 of the members of our band actually worked at Guitar Center at the time. And we knew them from coming into the store. And their dad was like really hype on these kids being good and they should be rock stars. One was his son, the other was his son's best friend. And so they got to the show and they had a couple songs worked out and they were going to play before us. And the dad's like, oh, he wants them to play. I don't remember what it was even now, but it was some classic rock song. It might have been a Led Zeppelin song. Dad was like a freak for Led Zeppelin. And it had a relatively simple bass line. And he grabs me as a bass player for the next band on. He's like, hey, sit in with us. We want to do this song. We can't do it without, it's not going to sound right without a bass player. It was just the 2 kids on guitar and drums. And I was like, I outright told them, like,
my answer would be no.
I was like, I can't really do this. Like, if I was further along with this band and I was comfortable with all this material, but I'm still like actively listening for cues. I'm worried that I'm going to play something wrong, that I'm going to forget a part. I've had to cram all this stuff into my brain. It's not natural. He's like, oh, but it's simple. It's in this key. You just do it. And he grabbed me while I was like tuning up my bass, and
no, I'd be like, if this is gig number 1. If this is gig 101, maybe, but this is gig 1. No, sorry, right. Man. And side note, get a bass player.
Right, and he's badgering me on this. Like, you can do this. I'm like, it's not a question of whether I can do it. He's like, yeah,
I don't want to do it. How about that? No.
Stop raping me musically. Right. No means no.
Yeah.
Right, and he's like, oh, just play this part and this part and this part. And finally I show him, like, look, yeah, I know it, okay? I can play it. I'm not going to remember that. I'm not going to want to. I'm not in the mode worrying about what your kid's band is going to do on stage. I'm worried about what I'm going to do on stage when they're done. Okay. And that dude was mad at me forever.
Fuck him. And his kids.
He was talking shit about me left and right, about what a stuck up asshole I was. That was some indie rocker that was too good to play some classic rock. And I obviously didn't know good music, and he thought that. I mean, maybe I came off like that.
You should have said, "Oh yeah, there was this asshole, frustrated rock star dad whose 2 kids formed a shitty band, and he kept badgering me to play bass for him."
Yeah.
Oh, brutal.
You got problems, buddy.
So anyway, war stories.
Never had that type of shit. Have had that. Can I borrow your gear stuff?
That story makes me not miss being in a band. That makes me go, oh, I'm glad that's done.
Well, I guess the closest to it is being a house band at an open mic night. I'd have this guy come in, and he was kind of well known in certain circles, as like, ooh, this, he went to was a GIT, Guitar Institute Technology, and all this, and he comes in and he doesn't have anything, and I'm like, well, you come to an open mic and you don't even have your guitar? No, so can I play your guitar? And I'm like, okay.
No.
And then he's like, already everyone's using my rig, and I'm like, all right. I mean, I know he's not going to do anything stupid with it, so I'm like, all right, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna play. He starts going into "Won't Get Fooled" again. By the end of it, his guitar's smashed on the ground.
Well, and then he goes, I need a bass player. And I'm like, all right, you need a bass player. I'm like, what song do you want to play?
Right. Do you need me to cup your balls while you sing, too? I mean.
He goes, Spanish Castle Magic. I'm like, well, I know it on guitar. I'm like, I know it on
Christ.
I'm like, I know it on guitar, and I know it's an 8-string bass on the record, and the bass line's pretty much following the guitar.
Right.
I can fake it. And he goes, okay, so I go over to our bass player, and I'm like, I gotta, can I play your rig? He wants to play Spanish Castle Magic. A drummer knows it. I'm the only other person that can play it on bass, apparently. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Go ahead, man. We go to start, and he goes, okay, so this is the version off of the bootleg from Winterland in 1968.
Wow.
Okay, and so
what a dick.
Did you turn off the rig and just walk off the stage? Because that's what I'd have done.
No, I'm sitting here. First of all, we got paid in booze, and this was later in the night, so I was pretty overserved. So I'm sitting there probably with just got done pumping the neighbor's dog look on my face like, is this fucker for real? And I swear to God, he goes, so this bootleg, and I'll give you a cue. You guys stop, because I'm going to do the same thing Hendrix did, and I'm going to go into like this flamenco guitar solo that he did for a second, and then I'm going to give you the nod. You guys come back in.
Yeah, you've officially become too high maintenance. This is over. We're not even playing note 1.
So I turned around and looked at the bass or the drummer, and I was like, DeMarcus, did you get all that? And he's like, I don't fucking know. I'm like, dude, look, here's the deal. I know the record one. I don't know something off some fucking obscure fucking, I don't know what to tell you. And he's like, well, just follow me. Dude, literally, he gave us the nod to stop. I guess it's the biggest dick move I've ever done in an open mic night or on stage period. He gave us a nod to stop. I stopped. I took the bass off. I turned the amp off. I put the bass on the stand. I went and sat in the crowd.
There you go.
I was like, if you want to do your fucking eruption, via Hendrix flamenco guitar solo that I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know when I'm supposed to come in. It's a 3.5 minute song on the record. You've already been playing it for 5 minutes. I'm done. and the drummer, to his credit, he tried to hang in there, but it just turned into a train wreck. And of course, he got off and, went around, that guy's an asshole. I don't know why you're in a band with him. He ain't shit. You should have been able to fucking follow him.
Well, if this is a live version, I mean, Jimi Hendrix's band, they were like jazz musicians, and they practiced a shit ton and knew each other's cues and knew how to improvise. And he's going to try and reproduce that on the spot with people he doesn't even know?
Yeah, he's never
a
played
retard.
With?
He's a retard. He showed up to an open mic. He showed up to an open jam with no gear. Right. He's a retard.
I mean, automatically, if you show up to an open jam and you want to do something, like, let's say, because we used to have people come in and go, hey, do you know any Trower? And I'm like, I know 2 Rolling Stone, I know Bridge of Sighs, I know Day of the Eagle. Okay, let's do Day of the Eagle. Okay, cool. But now if you come in and you're like, I want to do a song, you ever heard 3 of a Perfect Pair by King Crimson? Get the fuck out of here. This is an open jam, dude.
Right.
All right?
Let's do La Via Strangiato.
Yeah, no, we're not doing fucking progressive shit off the top of our heads. I mean, first of all, I play in an original band. As a favor to the bar, our band is the house band for their open mic night. We just learn the covers that people come in and ask us. How many fucking people do you think come in and ask us to learn King Crimson songs? Hardly any at all. We had a horn section come in. They said, you guys know 25 or 6 to 4? And I'm like, I can fake it. Let's go. And we actually did a decent rendition of it, but they knew not to be like, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is the alternate version of blah, blah, blah off of Kind of Blue. No, we're not. Okay? If you want to do it, you go ahead. The rest of us are going to sit down. There's no fucking way, dude. I love music. I hate a lot of musicians. I'm right there with you, Chris.
I was just about to say that, dude.
Music
are going to have this strange love affair, but musicians, get the fuck out of here, man. I think that might have been part of the reason. That might be part of my musical PTSD is other musicians.
I've got what I think is one of the greatest stories about playing with shitty musicians. Stop me if you've heard this one before, which is funny because it's about a Smiths cover band. Have I told you the story about playing with the Smiths cover band?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
I'd remember something like that.
So, again, this band Telecollision that I was in, this is after I've been with them for, I think a little over a year, very comfortable. We get the chance to open up for a cover band, which is kind of weird, but I guess they get some pretty big crowds because they're playing the Magic Bag out in Ferndale, and which is a nice venue. This is the first time I had ever got to play there. That's usually where I would go to see touring acts come through.
Yeah.
So that was a really nice opportunity. We were all really geeked about it. We had some good reception from the crowd, and that's kind of a tough crowd. Everyone comes out to hear some Smith songs, and you're like, but first, here's some shit we wrote in our basement, and then proceed to play for 35 minutes. But it went well. So the show goes really great. We're kind of all jazzed and pumped up afterwards, as you do. You get that once you get off stage, you kind of are still in that high. And we're the four of us in the band are out by the front of the place, and the cover band's getting ready to go on. Oh, I forgot an actual detail to this. We brought some shirts and a little bit of merch, and there was a merch table out, and we set it on the very end of it, took up like less than a quarter of the table. And our shit was removed because that table was set up for the main band, specifically for their stuff that they wanted it spread out on the whole table. So we didn't have a spot to sell our merch. We had to go and hawk it in the crowd afterwards.
Fucking goddamn, dude.
Right. So
heaven forbid we share a table.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. So after the show, when we're out there with our merch in hands, asking people if they are interested in a T-shirt or CD, the merch full of unlicensed Smiths cover band shit that they shouldn't be allowed to print anyway is completely unattended because the band didn't bring anybody to run their merch table, right? And they didn't ask anyone to run it either. So we're standing there selling our shit by the front door, and people are going, well, how much for this? And I'm like, well, this sheet says it's $20, so then they give me $20 and take a T-shirt. And I'm like, okay, I put it in their box, right? I started running their merch table. The Nicole, one of the other, the singer and guitar player in the band, starts helping out. I find an excuse to duck out to go have a cigarette. Nicole gets stuck running the merch table some more. And I think by that time we either like gave up or people just didn't want shit anymore. The show was over. So we're like, well, that was really weird. But we actually sold some shit, and we were probably more successful. We sold more CDs than we would have normally because we were forced to get out there and glad hand it basically and say, hey, did you like our show? Here's our CD. It's only $5. Check it out. So we actually sold a decent amount. Now, when it came to get paid for our gig, the agreed upon amount was much smaller for some reason. And I wasn't there for it. Eric, one of the other band members, was inside getting paid for it from the singer of the cover band. Basically, the cover band got their cut. They booked us and paid us out of theirs. Well, it was supposed to be like, I think we were getting like 100, maybe 120, $150, somewhere like that. Uh-huh. And he walks out with like $40. And I'm like, what is this shit? Well, they said there's some T-shirts missing. What? I was ready to run back in there and confront the guy, and Eric grabbed me and was like, no, I'll take care of this. I'm like, you're not going to fucking take care of this. You're going to fucking roll over because you're a big baby. But
see, you're nicer than me because when I was in my 20s, I was a little less ethical. How much is the shirt? $20. Give him the shirt. Take $20. Hey, I just made $20.
That's the thing is we were talking about like what assholes they were, and we could have robbed them blind. And now here they are after we helped them out and didn't rob them, and they're punishing us for it. Because
that was fate telling you should have robbed them, Arron.
Because at some point during their unattended, while they were out unattended, people took some shit before we stumbled upon it and said, hey, this sucks for the band. All their shit's out here where people are just grabbing it. Let's actually sell it.
Dude, see, you know why? Because you flipped off Karma. Karma tried to bring shit back around to you for getting edged out on the merch table, and then in the end, it's Karma slapping you in the face, going, no, dipshit, you should have took all that money.
Jesus. Yeah, that's rule number one. You don't leave merch sitting out. If you leave merch sitting out and there's no one around, you're in a bar with drunk people, and they're going to assume, oh, this must be free.
Yeah.
I can't count how many times people have walked off with like buttons or something we had made up, and just grab it and walk off, and whoa, our merch person would have to be like, oh, hey, hold on a sec, oh, these aren't free. No, they're not free, and I've actually had people do it with demos, like an EP we recorded, like fucker shrink wrapped. You're just gonna walk off with it for whoa, where are you going?
Yeah, man, that's why my one band, we always made sure we'd get one person in for free with us, because that was that was the one job in the band nobody wanted. Because when you're hammered after you just got off stage, oh no, I don't want to have to run the. Because we always had somebody had to be with the merch at all times, whether it's before we were playing, after we're playing. So no one wanted to get saddled with that, so we'd always make sure we'd bring somebody with us to help load, and then they'd run the merch booth for us.
Well,
so I'm like, hey, you get in for free? All you have to do is stand behind this table the entire fucking time.
I have to ask you, Arron, now was it a Smiths cover band or was it a Smiths tribute band? Do you get the difference I'm saying here?
Yes.
That's a difference?
He didn't look anything like, I mean, he put on a little bit of the, hand waving and shirt open and a little bit of the flair, but he was kind of lame at it. And he didn't really sound like him that much. And
his cover, you just play the songs, and tribute is you try to actually sound and look like them?
Yeah. And, right. Oh my God, the thing that drove me nuts as a bass player, their bass player he wasn't playing the actual Andy Rourke bass lines from the songs. And I'm like, this isn't something that you can just fake the root on and just get through it. Like, those bass lines are essential to those fucking songs. They're up there playing This Charming Man, one of the most perfect pop songs, and it rides on that bass line. And he's just like, just fucking doon 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 doon. That shit. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is not a.
It's like being in a Hendrix cover band and going, no, dude, I only play rhythm. It's not
Right.
going to work.
Right. Anyway, we're really getting.
Nice.
I think we got it all off our chests.
We dug deep into our bags of gripes to air them. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what grinds our gears, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
See, there's other things than Trump to talk about.
Yeah.
Shitty musicians.
Yeah. Trump and asshole musicians. But thanks for everybody for sitting through it again. You know, it is so weird how the dynamic of the show has changed since it started. But
we don't even know where each show is going to go from show to show. I mean, I knew there was shit that I was pissed off about.
More popular than it was before. More people listen than they have before. So we're doing something right.
I think it's unfiltered conversation. That's what we're doing right. Yeah. If I was to toot my own horn.
At Unregimented Pod on Twitter. At Unregimented on Instagram. You can email unregimented@ChristopherMedia.net. If you ever want to weigh in on, I know we have opinions. I know not everybody agrees with them. So, thanks for listening. Oh, download us on iTunes at ChristopherMedia.net, and we'll catch you next week.
Yep.
All right. Later, guys.
If you enjoy this show and want more